Hello, and welcome to episode 118 of the Eyes Free Sports Podcast. This is your host, Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode, we are visiting with a gentleman from the great state of New York. And this guy happens to be a multi-sport adaptive athlete who played sports as a youngster but has since gotten back into sports in recent years. In addition, he is a very talented musician and actually has a band that is comprised of some other blind and visually impaired musicians. So let's go ahead now and hit the court and the field and get rolling with episode 118 of the Eyes Free Sports Podcast. Okay, so my guest here on this episode of the podcast is Alvin Suarez. And Alvin is a super talented multi-sport athlete, several different adaptive sports that he competes in and at pretty high levels as well. Alvin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks.
Definitely appreciate you joining the conversation here. I know I had mentioned to you before we started, I followed you on Facebook for a while and just really know you're, super passionate about adaptive sports and blind sports, and so I thought, hey, why don't I reach out and see if we can make this connection? So appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've listened to some episodes of your podcast, and it's a pretty good one. So it's definitely an honor to be here, man.
Awesome. Appreciate that feedback.
Sure.
So why don't we just start things off here, Alvin, just with your background as far as where you were born and where you grew up.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in New York City in the East Harlem section of Manhattan. Really like the Spanish Harlem area, just literally a few blocks from here. I currently live on the Upper East Side, right near where I was born, about 3 blocks away. And I've lived in New York for all my life. And I actually am one of the few people. I mean, it gets, it's a New York City gets a bad rap, but I actually really love it here. It's a great neighborhood now. It wasn't when I was growing up, but it's a great neighborhood now. And I really enjoy being here, and I love New York.
Nice, yeah. And I'm sure just in terms of accessibility, when I visited, I'm like, you know what? If it weren't for the ice and snow, maybe I could live here too.
Yeah, and that's the part I hate. Like after the holidays, I'm done with ice and snow.
Right.
Then it's like, okay, now we're counting down the spring, right? Like it's January, February. I'm like, all right, like make it stop, man. But in terms of accessibility, yeah, I have to admit it's really easy for folks like myself to get around. I have a subway stop like a half a block down, and whenever I work from home, but whenever I do report to work, I take the train. It's like basically half an hour from door to door. It's just such an easy commute now. It wasn't always, but now it is, because it's part of the new Q line that they put here about 5-6 years ago. So, they kind of rebuilt the neighborhood around here, but now I have everything like a Starbucks around here, and just everything is steps away here. And then everybody delivers. Manhattan's kind of a 24-hour, that's really the part of the city that, especially the part of the city that never sleeps. So, I just really love it here.
Sure. Absolutely. So then as far as your eye condition, what kind of visual condition do you have?
I have LCA, Leber's congenital amaurosis. Now, I actually have a couple of problems with my vision, right? So I have LCA, which is a degenerative eye condition. For me, it's, and I have a twin brother as well. So it's, both of us, we have issues with pigmentation on the optic nerve. So that basically kind of messes with how the brain receives signals from what I'd be looking at. But I was also 2 months premature. So the rods and cones are damaged. That affects light, dark, colors, clarity. Because again, we were 2 months premature. So it's kind of a twofold problem. I had usable vision up until I was about, I would say about 12 years ago. So I used to be able to read print. I used to be able to watch TV, check out the ladies, that kind of thing. Recognize color, go to the ball games and stuff like that. I even played sports with vision, but it slowly deteriorated and then suddenly deteriorated like around that 12-year a goal mark. So now I only have light perception. I've lost clarity. Everything looks either gray, black, or white now. I can't read print anymore. The colors I certainly can't see. And, I just kind of, I remember what things look like. So I am still very much able to visualize. And of course, like anyone else, in my position, I use technology to kind of read and do the things I need to do. And it's not something that I think about, all day long. But the cool thing is that it's stable from here, according to my eye doctor. So I'm kind of a no doubt B1 in athletic speak, right? But so nobody will ever accuse me of cheating. That's for sure. But from here, it's not going to get any worse.
Right. I see. Yeah, and
which is fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yep, and I'm also an LCA'er, so to speak.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Very similar.
You're saying nice, like it's like a party, like, oh yeah, LCA party, like. But yeah. The funny thing is they have variations of it, right? Like, because it's a syndrome. So a syndrome, as you know, like they take a bunch of like symptoms and they kind of group them into a category. And sometimes when they don't really know what to like how to deal with it or how to label it, then it's just a syndrome of some sort. So it's kind of funny. Like some LCA folks have like daytime vision, or nighttime vision. It's kind of weird. Like you and I can have the same condition, but they can kind of manifest differently.
Exactly. Yeah. And I am curious. I know you mentioned your twin brother. Is your vision pretty much the same as his, or is his any different? Or
pretty much. I would say I have maybe 10% of what I used to have. He has maybe 5% of what he used to have.
I see. Interesting.
He did sports too. Like we used to compete against one another, and we were teammates. When we could see, we would play against each other in the playground, basketball, baseball, football, that kind of thing. But once we started adaptive sports, obviously we're teammates going to the same school. We only went to the school for the blind for 2 years. Our last 2 years of high school, we went to like regular schools with regular kids, quote unquote regular kids, right? With the exception of middle school, where I went to the East Harlem Performing Arts School. That was like you had to audition to get in there, and then I trudged through the New York City public school system for 10th grade, because the middle school had a 9th grade, right? So that was fine, right? But then 10th grade was the hard knocks, where we went to public school in East Harlem, El Barrio, right? And I would, on average, get into about 3 or 4 fights, because when you're like a straight A or B student and you don't see very well, you're kind of a little bit low on the totem pole. So, but it's, it's the hood. Like in the hood, you got to like prove yourself, right? If you're going to be like scared, and I think people that are also in the hood, like they know, right? Like if you're scared, they're going to come at you more, right? They test you. That's how it is. And it's probably still is that way in a lot of these high schools, right? That are in the hood. So, I obviously wanted to defend myself or defend my buddies or whoever. I would certainly not back down, right? Like, but then eventually, and that's the funny thing, you earn respect and it just kind of goes away, right? Especially if you're a bit of a wise ass and, you kind of find ways to kind of go at them a little bit verbally. And sometimes if you say something funny, they really can't help it. And then you're kind of good with them. They're like, all right, he's cool. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was. And that's in that particular, I went to Park East High School in Gotcha. And then I did transfer along with my brother to the New York School for the Blind up in the Bronx. They call it New York Institute. I hate that name. They call it New York Institute for Special Education. Whoever named it, like, didn't realize the connotation that special education has. Right. And I guess they named it because they no longer only serve the blind. But I don't know. I kind of liked your, NYIEB was the original name. It was like New York Institute for the Education of the Blind. I'm like, whatever it is. I just call it New York Institute, but that's where I went for those last 2 years. And then I went to Hunter College, got a degree in sociology and psychology. And here I am.
Yeah, pretty well-known college.
Yeah. I did wrestle and to do track in the School for the Blind, and then I participated in Goalball, which was still like that for that school. It was new, so I was on their first ever team.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, right? And then I played Goalball until into my 20s because like even when I graduated the school, they kept like an alumni team and then like their regular high school team, and then they integrated some of the talents, right? If let's say if there's like an 18-year-old graduating or whatever, they kind of combine them with the early 20 somethings, which is where I was at the time, and then eventually they stopped funding the alumni team. So I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess. And then of course life happened, so I took this huge break in Goalball, and it didn't rejoin until 20 something years later when I was like an older adult. And I was like,
Wow.
The game had really, really changed a lot at that point, which I'm glad because I think it's a better game.
Interesting.
And I did wrestle 1 year at Hunter College, but I was in the weight class of a state champion. I was like, oh man, I'm not really getting in the lineup that much. But then life happened, right? Marriage, and then eventually, marriage, divorce, marriage, kids, divorce. That's not that. So,
it happens to the best of us. Yep.
Marriage, divorce, divorce, marriage, divorce. I think all that happens, right? Get the job after college, and I was actually one of the lucky ones. Like I found work only a few months after college, and then I always had the music thing to kind of fall back on as well. We'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure. But I made my life out of just whatever opportunity that was in front of me. It took advantage of them. I got some lucky breaks, some unlucky breaks, but I just made it all work, man. I put it all together. It took me a while, but I did.
Oh yeah, keep grinding, right?
yeah. It never stops, really.
That's so true. Yeah. So before we do get into sports, as far as your career, any kind of career highlights you want to mention, industries you've worked in, etc.
Yeah, I currently work at a telecommunications company. So I started working there right out of college. I started it as one of the bad guys. I was one of those collection reps. Right? Like, somebody owed money on their bill. Like I had to call them, or they would call me to make payment arrangements. Now, here's the funny part. So I'm working for like $1 billion company, right? Like it wasn't my money, right? My thing is like, my view was, all right, everybody has a hard time. Everybody has a budget. Everybody has, everyone has bills to pay, right? Stuff like that, family, whatever. And anyone can fall on their hard on their luck, or sometimes we just need a little bit more time. Like I wasn't really a hard ass about it. Like my thing was work with people, right? It's not just people that call you on the phone. Yes, they're customers, but they're people, right?
Sure.
And I remember when I was poor and had no money, and I remember being late on my bills. I remember, so like my thing was I would sell payment arrangements. That's at least the way I used to how I used to approach it with the way I used to do the work there, right? Like I would just work with them, right? I would say, okay, your service is about to be cut off like next week, right? When do you need to, like, how much time are you looking for? So they say, well, I need 10 days, man. That's when I get my check, right? All right. Well, okay, they're going to cut you off in 7 days. Well, I can do this and this, but I have to wait 10 days. And then I'm like, okay, tell you what, well, what can you do right now? Even if it's something like that sounds idiotic. I could do $20, man, but they didn't get to take $20. I was like, you know what? I'll take 20, and here's what I'll do. Yeah, I'll give you pay us $20 now, and then I'll give you the 10 days for the rest of the balance. I'll follow up in your account, make sure it's all good, and if you keep your word, I'll make sure the services stay on. I'll look at it personally, and but if you don't keep your word, remember, I'm trying to work with you and give you a break here. They're going to go ahead and shut off that service. So I'm giving you the extra time, a small payment here, a large payment later. And that's just an example of the kind of things that I would do to work with people. And then they would tell me like, well, wow, okay, because they initially wanted, because the letters that they sent out were so threatening, we're going to take your firstborn if you don't pay $178, right? Or, whatever, right? And so they don't think like, oh, like I only have 20, man. Can you, they don't think about that, right? Because $20 is like such a ridiculous amount when you owe 178. So I would work with them, and I did that many times, and different circumstances, I would hear them out in as best as a 2 or 3 minute call, right? And I would speak to maybe 150 to 200 people a day. And with that approach, with me being easygoing, and I'm kind of a people person, so I would kind of joke around with them a little bit. I would hear them out if they're pissed off or whatever. And I was one of the top collectors in not only in my office, but in certainly in my section. I was like one of the tops in the entire city.
Wow.
And I would collect like 6 figures every month. And I was always on that leaderboard because I basically sold payment arrangements. So, in my career in that telecommunications company, it's just a few years in, I then passed the technician's exam, where I became a central office technician, basically handling repairs for landlines, and then eventually digital services as the technology evolves, right? And that's where I currently work. It's a little bit less of speaking to a lot less speaking to customers, a lot more intercompany calls, and a lot of like just stuff to keep an eye on, maintenance, watching switches, handling some light programming stuff, and it's all like on a computer. It sounds boring, but it pays the bills, right? And it's a technical job. I do that now, and I work from home like 4 days a week. And then generally on a Wednesday, I'll report to work usually, and my boss is really cool. Like usually if there's nothing specific he needs from me, then he'll just tell me, go ahead and just stay home. Don't come in. Only come in if there's something specific. But when I do go in, it's going to be on a Wednesday. I do have to go in this Wednesday, in fact. But I've been there for a long, long time.
Wow.
And I do enjoy it. It pays the bills. It basically funds all my sports career and my music career. That's kind of what I've done. And I was lucky enough to do that right out of college.
Yeah, and in this day and age, to stick with one company for that long is pretty rare. So
yeah,
kudos to you.
It's rare, and it's hard, and I'm in a union job, so it's like it has its ups and downs. Like I've been through strikes and stuff like that, and you get caught in the crossfire as an employee. Like you just want to like go to work, make your money, and support your family, right? Like that's all you want to do, and sometimes you get kind of caught up in rhetoric and negotiations. I hate that part of it.
Right.
Luckily, that's just a small part of my career. But also on the side, I do music, and then I'm also a licensed relationship coach, specializing in attachment theory, trained by an organization called the Personal Development School up in Canada. And I subscribe to attachment theory. I don't want to. That's a whole new show, right? That's I could get into what attachment theory is, but basically there are four different attachment styles that we all belong to one of them, right? There are 3 insecure attachment styles and 1 secure attachment style, and we have a primary and then we have a secondary, right? So it's how we attach based on our programming, that we've received, growing up as children, right? So we kind of learn through what we experience, with how our parents have attached with us, and we kind of carry that to how we attach to others, right? Whether it's friends, romantic relationships, professional, and there are certain core wounds and unmet needs that very often will provide some pain and strain points that need sometimes reprogramming, unless you're a secure attacher. And even with the clients that I work with that are secure, so a lot of them just need an ear or some support, and that's really all they need. If it's someone that's in an insecure attachment style, then it's basically just kind of a reprogramming of thought process, right? Because there are a lot of patterns that need to be broken. And then there's this recognition of, we got to take a hard look at ourselves, even the most difficult parts of ourselves, own it, take accountability for it, and then reprogram it, right? That's basically what I do with my clients. I myself used to be an insecure person. I am now secure. But it took a lot of work, and I made mistakes. I had relationships that didn't work. I made a lot of the same mistakes that folks would make when they're in an insecure attachment style, and I wanted to take that. I had to own it, but then and then use attachment theory to explain what I could have done differently. Use attachment theory for just to analyze what went wrong and what not to do next time. And then I was like, I can work with people on this. I've always liked people. So right. That's what I do now. And that's something that I do on the side. I have a job already, a day job. So I just do it on the side, and I don't really charge a lot for it because it is work. Yes. But it's something that I want to do to help people, because who wouldn't want more happy people and happy relationships in the world, right? I certainly do. So I root for them. Right. So that's why I chose to do that. I've been doing that. I got my license in 22, and I've been doing it for a little bit over a year now, regularly. I have a few clients.
Wow. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. I assume that kind of harkens back to your sociology and psychology studies.
And that's the funny thing. I was like, I got this degree for nothing, right? I felt like I got it. Like, what am I? And then I finally, when I found my niche in 2021 and 2022. I was like finally, I kind of get to put this to use. And there's a difference, just to be clear, there's a difference between being a coach and being a therapist. I'm not a therapist, right? Or a psychologist, right? It's different. So coaching is kind of like, it requires less licensing. I just happen to have the education for it. But that's kind of it's just coincidence, right? It's the concentration that's associated with it. But it wasn't like I went to college. I was like, I want to be a coach, right? Like, I was initially going to try to be a social worker, but the job that I got at the telecommunications company paid a lot more, and I was like, what, I'm going for the money. I was 20 something years old, and I was like, I got to earn some cash. Like, this is a lot better than the SSI that I'm getting right now. Like, so I'll take it. Exactly. So beggars can, because I was going to go to grad school, but I was like, never mind.
Right.
I saw what I could make. I saw how high I could go in salary. I'm like, yes, please. So
sign me up. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, all these years later, I then, kind of fell in love with the attachment theory studies. And I was like, well, okay, that kind of accidentally ties in, but it does. And I do have the education to, and the training to coach, but coaching is something that can be done either alongside therapy or before therapy, or just as a tool for support. And that's why I'm here, right? And if it's a really intense situation that someone is in, where it requires help that's over my level of training and even expertise, because I don't know everything. I'm not perfect, right? I don't have all the answers. Then I will honestly refer them to whatever they might need, because I'm not trying to take their money, and I don't want to make false promises and then fall short, because that's just a messed up thing to do to someone who's hurting, or someone that needs help, or just needs someone to talk to.
Gotcha. Wow, that's really fascinating.
Thanks.
So then transitioning on to sports. So I know you did mention earlier, as far as goalball, that you did play, I guess, at the blind school, when you were younger, and then really took a kind of a hiatus for a while and got back into it, as an adult, older adult, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
So definitely curious what kind of brought you back to sports, to goalball, maybe specifically.
I missed it. I remember, my brother and I have always been competitive people. We love sports. I watch all 4 major sports, and I just love competition. I do the fantasy sports, but there's always when you're an athlete, there's always a part of you that finds it really hard to walk away from. And I think if you speak to other older athletes that have been doing it for about 20 years, sometimes even 30 years, it's just so hard to watch. It's fun. I like the camaraderie. I like the fact that we, talk crap to one another and we try to beat each other on the court or on the field. And later that night, we're all cracking beers together. I like the camaraderie part of it. And I like the competition part of it. And, I had always wanted to find some way to balance real life with that. I struggled with it, certainly through my 30s, right? I struggled with that. I was out of shape for a while. But then eventually I kind of took my control of my life again. I was starting to go to the gym again. And, I realized that I still had ability, athletic ability. And, I talked to my friends about it. And one of the guys in New York, was actually a gentleman that was still playing that I did play with the first time around. And I was like, wait a minute, he's still doing this? and he's just about as old as I am. I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me try. If he's still playing, let me try. And, I got in there and I didn't really, there were some new things I had to learn about the sport, because, 2000 teens were certainly different than the 90s, right? So,
sure.
There's some rule changes that were a little different than the first time I played. But I realized I still had the skill. I was like, okay, I still have a pretty decent ear. I can still take a beating, and I still have a decent throw. Except now I'm a full-grown adult, and instead of like a lanky 23-year-old, right? I'm a full-grown adult with that's a little bigger. I have with a little more muscle. If I could just kind of hone that and turn that into ability as an older adult, I felt like I could still do it, and I can. And I'm not going to go around pretending I'm the best player in the world, because I'm not. I'm definitely too old for the Paralympics, right? So I don't have that kind of aspiration,
right?
But I'm good. I can be the third guy on an elite team or the first guy in a developing up and coming team, right? And I've done both. I've won with both, right? So I always consider myself a tweener, where I can kind of rock with both sides of it. So I could either the regular men's or the elite, and so basically. I play based on team need, because I'm always about the team first. With NIABA, with the New York Empire or the New York Knights, or whatever the name of choice is, right? And I just absolutely love doing it. I love my teammates. Some of them could be my little brother. Some of them could even, dare I say, some of them could even be my son, right? Sons and daughters, right?
Sure.
So and but there's a guy that's I'm not even the oldest guy on the team.
Oh wow!
So
Can't feel too
and I'm
bad
certainly
then.
not even the oldest player. Yeah, and I've met players older than me that I'm like, God bless y'all. Like, I hope when I'm your age, I could still do this. But the advantage I have is that 20-something year break that I took off, because a lot of guys that are my age that are still playing, they've got the wear and tear. I mean, imagine throwing a goalball for 30 years, right? You're gonna wear down a little bit. I don't have that yet, so I'm kind of still relearning the game. Until I've always kept track of my own stats to kind of get a gauge. Not because I'm trying to be arrogant about it or trying to prove anything, but it's for me to hold myself accountable, right? If I see that my ears are not quite the same, because everyone's ears change after a while. After you're 35, they change.
That's right.
I think even 30, they change. Right? So if I start to, feel like I'm slowing down, if I'm starting to be inefficient, then I don't want to hurt my team. So I am very happy to bow out. So if my percentage of blocks goes down a certain level, I'm going to be like, all right, well, this is fun, but I think it'll be my last year, and I'm always going to be in love with adaptive sports. So if it's, I'm always I would always consider to coach and just be a part of, things that we can do to grow the sports that I'm in. I actually was instrumental in starting the women's team bringing women's goalball back to New York. I had a great group that worked with me at NYABA, New York Association for Blind Athletes. So, they backed me. They said, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. I put it a post, and the rest is history. Now we're in our second year. I'm very proud of my athletes. I have some really talented women on my squad. I found another gentleman who is just as passionate about it as I am. His name is Justin, and he helps me coach. I don't have the eyeballs; he has them, and him and I are very much on the same page in terms of how we coach. Same approach. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it. And then I still have the men on our side that support them now, right? That I'm not saying they didn't support them then, but maybe it was different before I came. I don't know, right? But they're supportive. So we get behind our ladies. They are so talented and very athletic. I'm proud of them. And so now the guys get behind them. And I love my male teammates as well. They become like your brothers after a while, right? And I've been part of it now since my with Goalball for about 6 years now. And and even though I'm 195 years old, I this is only my 12th season as a player. I don't know what I got left, but I'm certainly not done yet. But if it means that I then just take it and continue to coach, I'm good with that too, because I like to see the sport grow. There's some really good young men coming up, let alone the women that are coming up, and they're going to be the future of the sport. And I just kind of look at them like a proud father or a proud big brother. I just love that evolution. And so, yeah, that's my Goalball story. And then there's my and by the way, if I may plug this, so the New York Association for Blind Athletes, we're doing a fundraiser on July 17th in New York City on East 92nd Street. It's called Reef's Bar. I'm hoping not to misspell it, but it's REIF 'S bar, 302 East 92nd Street in Manhattan. But if you need some information, you can definitely hit me up on my social media, Alvin M. Suarez. We also have a Facebook page called New York Goalball Sport for the Visually Impaired. I'm actually like one of the admins on there. So if you want some more information on that, you can, hit us up there, and we'll give you, give you some more details about it. But with a $45 donation to our PayPal, you would get 2 free drinks, some barbecue food, and some light refreshments, and you get to interact with all of us. I am now part of their board. I'm the vice president of NYABA, and a very proud member as a player, coach, and board member. And we hope to see you there. It's gonna be a fun time.
Nice. I'll definitely include all that info in the show notes for everyone to have as well.
Thanks. So baseball. So I've always loved baseball since I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. My mom would sit me down in front of Yankee games all day long. But then when I was like 7, 8 years old, I was like, I kind of like the Mets better. I don't know why, because they sucked back then, but I don't know. I just kind of like the Mets, right?
Yo.
I fell in love with baseball, and I remember like studying the game. Because when you're visually impaired and you're 9, 10 years old, you don't really understand, especially when you have usable vision, like I did at that time. Like you don't really understand that you can't play baseball. Like no professional team is going to take you unless you're Tommy Pham, right? Who is visually impaired, right?
That's right. I did hear that.
It takes. There's only a small percentage of people that actually make it to the majors, let alone like visually impaired folks. But I didn't understand that back then, right? Like I thought I was gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna blow up. I'm gonna go to a really good baseball college, and then I'm gonna go up to the system, the minors, and that's what I was a little kid, and then I was like, I'm gonna be a major leaguer one day. I even had my uniform number picked out. I was like, I don't know who I'm gonna be drafted by, but it's gonna be fun. So I would study the game. I would watch how the pitchers would hold the ball. I bought books how to pitch. There are different players that I used to read about. Roberto Clemente really resonated with me. His story, it was a lot, not only for his prowess on the field. He was a little bit before my time, and I was an infant when he died. Mm. And he was a hero to me. Like not just for what he did on the field, but what he did off the field. And he literally died like giving, a piece of himself to others. So Roberto Clemente, for those who don't know his story, he died in a plane crash. There was an earthquake. I think it was an earthquake, a natural disaster in Nicaragua. And he was on his way to deliver some supplies to people who really needed it down there. And he was on that plane that went down. And, he was still, he was still playing at that time. He was a Pittsburgh Pirate. He wore the number 21. And that's actually why I wear the number 21 for the baseball teams that I play for. And I'll get into my baseball stories in just a moment here. But he's a hero to me. And I saw some footage of his play. He had won numerous batting titles, some World Series MVPs. He played a really good right field. And he took a lot of crap, actually, because he had the Puerto Rican accent. And people would make fun of him in the press. They would actually write out his pronunciation with the accent. So, for example, he would say, "I heat the ball," right? They would write it, "I heat," Heet, the ball, BOL. And I'm like, okay, way to make fun of him, right?
Oh yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah, who does that, right? But that's how they treated him. And then they would call him Bobby Clemente because they didn't want to say Roberto Clemente, right? So he had gone through his bouts with racism and stuff like that in the league when he first came up. But he was a deadly player. And he had to kind of navigate through all of that and still be one of the best out there. So a lot of Puerto Rican. So my nationality, I'm Puerto Rican, Cuban, and Guatemalan. But I was born here in New York, so Spanish is actually my second language, which is funny because I play Latin music. So I don't know that. Well, that's probably because of my dad, because he was a Latin musician. But a lot of Puerto Rican players, they will not wear the number 21 because their thought process is, I'm not Roberto Clemente, and there are some people that feel like 21 should be retired in Major League Baseball, the same way 42 is.
For Jackie Robinson.
They haven't done that yet. Yeah, so they haven't done that. And I thought about that, but a lot of Puerto Rican players they'll either wear the number 20, 22, or even 12, right?
Interesting.
Now I did go all out and wear the 21, but I also made a pledge that if they retire it in the MLB, I will not wear that number anymore. And I'm wearing it as an homage. Not that I'll ever be Roberto Clemente, but if I can at least embody the hustle and embody the effort and embody giving to others, if I can at least embody even a tenth of what he's done, I can live with myself a lot better. And I'm never going to be, obviously, I am an older blind person that can still play a little bit of ball, but I'm never going to be him. I'm never going to be in the major leagues, not in this lifetime. So I can at least carry myself as a major leaguer would, and throw it all out there. Sometimes play hurt, just give 110% of an effort for my team, because that's what he did.
Absolutely.
I'm not Roberto Clemente, but I can embody him as best as I can. And every game, in every game, I will, with the very little bit of vision I have left, I will look up to the sky, walking on the field, to let him know that I hope he's watching, all of his countrymen and his fans. And there are a lot of fans. Obviously, players don't really get to know their fans. And like I said, I was an infant when he was when he was kind of at the end of his career, tragically and suddenly. But and he would never know that I exist, right? But I hope somehow, in heaven or wherever he is, wherever I'm looking, that he knows I'm watching, and I hope he's watching me. That's what he means to me, anyway. So
nice. I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure, man. It was a lot. It was kind of deep, but that's kind of how I feel, right? So I started playing baseball in 2017, but it wasn't beat baseball. I started hearing about beat baseball, I would say around 2014 or 15. The first person who told me about it was Larry Hale from, at that time, the Boston Renegades. I was dating a girl in Boston at the time. He was playing for the Renegades. The Renegades were, I don't remember if they made the championship that year or the year after, the year before. It was around that time. He told me about that game. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, I really should try it out. And at that time, I was kind of doing this thing, traveling between Boston and New York. I had a job accommodation at the time that took me to Boston during the week. And then I was back in New York for the weekends, where I would then hang out with my kids and stuff like that. That whole joint custody thing. And I was there until about 2016, early 2016. The accommodation wore off, and then I came back home to New York because it was meant to be a temporary thing. But I learned about it from Larry Hale. He told me about the sport. It sounded really interesting to me. And then I spoke to another player from the Scrappers. And then I started hearing about it. And I was like, when I get back to New York, I'm going to look up, the Bombers to see if maybe they let me play with them. And I would read about them, and it sounded exciting. But after, just making sure that I'm in some kind of playing shape for any sport at an older age in 2016, I was like, okay, well, I'll talk to them before the next season. So in 2017, I reached out. Unfortunately, there was a miscommunication. I guess there was I looked them up somewhere online, and there was some outdated information. There was a number I called. They never got back to me. So I was like, okay, well, and I called them twice, and I was like, I guess they're not interested. So I went to the European style baseball, which they were doing in New York. So I played that, and I like it. I do like the sport. My thing is, if you like baseball, you like baseball. So I can rock with playing either one of them. But I did have some personal issues with folks associated with the European style baseball. But one of the biggest problems I had with it was the lack of development of it, right? Where if there are only two teams in New York, and they're the only two teams in the country, right? And for any of the real tournaments, it's really cool to go overseas and play. I went to Italy to play in 2019, and it was cool. It was a really cool experience. But then think about it: you're training for 8-9 months, and you're only playing 3 games a year, and it's overseas. And that sport has taken off in a global sense, where they have leagues in Cuba and Italy. But they also have leagues in England, France, Germany, Pakistan. I know I'm missing other countries. I think Honduras is getting it. Not Honduras. Panama. I think they're getting a league together. And I know there are others that I'm missing, but it's just not it's not taking off in America, right? Beat baseball is king here, right? So, which is fine, right? And I used to hate it, when one would go at the other. So I would hear some crap from the European, and I would say, look, I never played beat baseball, but don't crap on it. It's really popular here. And these players and coaches involved, they love baseball just as much as we do. And, I gave them the same spiel that I just gave y'all out there. You like baseball, you like baseball. And, you adapt to the kind of game that you're going to play. There are reasons for rules of every game, and, you just play it, because at the end of the day, it's something fun to do, when you want to do something fun and compete, right? And they're competing just like beat baseball is. So but I told them, don't crap on beat baseball. And, I would say that to the beat ballers, hey, look, don't crap on the other baseball. There are beat ballers that do like it. I'm one of them, right? So, because it's an interesting sport, right? So But anyway, so I played the European style baseball from 2017 up until like 21, I believe it was. Yeah, late 2021. And, there just wasn't, and mind you, there was COVID, right? 20 and 21, right? So like, I didn't really get to play a lot of competition, but then the Indie Edge reached out to me, and they were in the middle of a rebuild. This is after their 2019 season. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they came in like sixth that year or something. They were about to lose some people, so they were recruiting a few people, and I was one of them that they reached out to. I think it was an ad that I did back then, for Dove Men Plus Care, this little like modeling gig. But it was like I was the only blind athlete chosen, and I had my Goalball uniform on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I know that they were looking for people that had a Goalball background, and which I do, because goalballers are, we're fearless, right? Our job is literally to get hit. So we're going to get in front of the ball. The average Goalball is thrown about 30 miles an hour, but if you take an elite player, you can probably add another 10 to that. It's maybe about 40 miles an hour. So it's not, you're going to get some bruises, right? It's going to hurt, right? Yep. And plus you're throwing yourself on the ground, and it's a fast paced game. There's no rest for the weary, right? So you're going to be sweating, you're going to, sometimes be breathing hard, and your heart's going to be racing. But there are a lot of tools for Goalball that you can incorporate into beat baseball. So a lot of it, that fearlessness of playing a baseball. Beat baseball is going to go faster than the Goalball, right? And it's smaller, but there's a continuous beep, right? And it's a different game, but a lot of the same concepts are used. So the Indie Edge, I was one of a few recruits that they're looking at. They do take out of state players, so they knew I was from New York. So I had my Italy trip in 2019 to play, the competition that I had for the European baseball. But when I got back, I tried out for the Edge, and they weren't promising me starts, or nobody was insinuating that I was a superstar or anything. But I was good enough. I was decent, right? So they're like, okay, yeah, are you interested? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll play. But then COVID hit. Put everything on pause. I did the kind of virtual season in 2020. Yep. So I didn't, even though I joined the Edge in 2019, I didn't actually play my first beat baseball game, real game until 21. And that was my rookie year, even though I joined like it was almost 2 years ago at that point.
Wow.
So I had, and of course, my only regret is that I found beat baseball so late in my life. The Edge brought me into the league, and I'm really indebted to them. We came in fourth place in 21, and then we won a couple of championships in 22 and 23. Now I'm a role player there, so I just kind of do my job when I'm called upon to do so. Usually giving one of the superstars a rest. That's what a role player is, right? And I accepted it. It was fine. It was fine with me, right? So I accepted my role as a role player, and I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot from them. I learned what an up and coming to a championship team looks like, and I've had so much fun with them. I feel like I'm well taught there and well coached. And then in 2021, right when my team had already been eliminated in 21. I was on Facebook in Beatball Nation, and I was talking about the Bombers and that experience of the miscommunication. And the coach of the Bombers reached out, saw my comment, and he reached out to me. I had already given my word to the Edge that I was coming back the following season. So I was like, okay, but I would love to play with the Bombers, and I would love to. Oh, look, I love baseball, and I joined the game late. And I felt like, okay, well, I can get a starting gig in New York and be a role player in Indy and just kind of make up for lost time, right? So double up on my tournaments. Why not play for two teams? Now, naturally, you can only pick one for the World Series, and that's fine. There are rules and rosters that have to be in by a certain time. I had already committed to the Edge in 22, but I played with the Bombers for regional tournaments. My first Bombers tournament was in 2021. I got to put out my very first chance, the very first batter against the Boston Renegades. I got to put out. And I was nice. Like, okay, cool. It's kind of nice. It's fun. And I had already gotten my first career. I got all the first career stuff out of the way with the Edge. First career run scored and the first career put out. So I was like, okay, this is really cool. I got my first with two different teams, right?
Right.
I didn't particularly hit well, average wise, but it was still pretty cool. I did what was at least expected of me as a role player and a rookie, right? So 2022, I played. I did the same thing where I would play tournaments with both teams. But I played the World Series with the Edge. We won our first championship. I didn't have a particularly good year in the beginning. I was in a huge slump throughout June, but then I picked it up in July, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit comfortable. And then 23, I started contributing a little bit more. I wouldn't say superstar level, but I started to contribute a little bit more for both teams. The Bombers didn't go to the World Series that year, so I was like, okay, well then I'll stay with the Edge. And the Edge that at some point I will want to continue to build, because the Bombers are rebuilding right now, and they know I live in New York, and they know that I'm going to want to try to help build something, and they understand that I do have a much bigger role here in New York. It is my hometown, and and then eventually, I will be certainly going to the World Series with the Bombers when they're ready. And the Edge know this. At least the powers that be at the Edge know this, and it's all in peace, right? It's all with gratitude, and there's a lot of love there. They're like my second family out there in Indy. So this year in 24, the Bombers are still in rebuild mode. So we were already knowing that we're not going to the World Series all the way back in January. So I was like, okay, well, then I'll already go to the World Series with the Edge. I know them. I'm comfortable there. And, and at this point now I'm comfortable on the beat baseball field. I stopped playing the European style baseball in 21. I was asked to come back to it, and I might just play recreationally, but I'm not going to do the competition level is much better in beat baseball for me, because at least my, whatever it is, 9-10 months of work, at least I'll get a lot of games out of it, right? Instead of just 3. Exactly. So, and with me, with me doubling up on the tournaments, I'm making up for years that I missed, right? So I get to play 6 or 7 tournaments a year in beat baseball. So it's like, if they do anything locally, I'll do it. If I get an offer I can't refuse and it doesn't interfere with my beat baseball season, then I'm good. You want to take me to France and I'll play ball in the fall? Sure, I'll do it. Right. I'm not making any all-star team, right? So I'm fine. I'm good with it. I own that, right?
Oh, so, yeah.
I'm okay with that. But it's not a priority. I think beat baseball, I've fallen in love with that game. I'm now comfortable and used to it, and doing work with 2 different teams. I've had a whole bunch of great teammates and coaches, and just a lot of people that I appreciate, and I have a love and appreciation for the game. And I'm in, man. I'm in until, and it's funny because as an older player, I keep saying to myself, well, when I reach this age, I'll evaluate myself. And then I see guys that are like 10 years older than me, and they're still playing at a high level. I'm like, evaluate. Look at him. He's still playing like he's a freaking beast. He's 10 years. Okay. So new plan. I'm just going to keep playing until I can't play anymore. And I'll do that thing that I'm going to do in Goalball. If I feel like, my skills are declining, and if I feel I'm going to hurt my team, then I'll step down and do something else. Right. Sure. But I know that the years that I'm going to play, that I plan to play beat baseball are going to be fun, rewarding. I just love this game. And, I want to, whether it's helping the Edge as a role player or helping the Bombers, as a starter, and I've taken some a little bit of leadership, but not in the sense of like doing it for me, despite what others might think, right? Like, but I'm always team first, right? So I along with a couple of other guys on the team, was instrumental in, because one of the ideas we discussed was, look, the team is aging, and a lot of blind athletes are going to be in the city, in New York City. Like, we have to have a practice facility in New York City where folks can come, because a lot of the complaints that I hear are, I'm not going to go all the way to Long Island to play baseball, which is, now for me, is no problem. If I could go all the way to Indianapolis to play beat baseball, Long Island is definitely not a problem.
Right.
Living in Manhattan, right? But I heard them out, and I was like, yeah, I understand. And we would have team meetings. I would bring it up, and we found a way to make it work together. And now it's working. Now we're finally getting some new recruits on our team that we're all very excited about. It's become a really good collaborative effort with me and some folks that have been involved in the process from different angles. And there's now a lot of optimism and a lot of excitement with some of our new players. And I can't wait to see what it's going to look like next year. My Bombers season is over, but there are 5 Bombers going to the World Series with different teams. I'm one of them. I know one guy is going to be playing with Jersey. 2 guys are going to be playing with the Tyler Tigers. One is joining the Boston Strong. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then myself, I'll be with the Edge, right? But next year we're going to look at things and see what the plan is going to be. But, if things work out the way they have been, we might be ready to go to World Series next year, of which case, then I'll, have a talk again with the Edge and say, all right, look, if you guys need me for this tournament or that tournament, I'm in. I'm not leaving the team, but, then it'll be back to, okay, I'll be going to the World Series with the Bombers, right? So everyone knows that, right? So the Bombers know it, the Edge know it, and and whatever I do for each team, I'm always going to do it with appreciation, love for them, the teams, love for the folks that I've played with and will play with, and love for the coaches and team heads. I have nothing but love for everyone that I've come across in this sport. I've learned so much from them, and I know I'm going to continue to learn a lot from both of these teams. But I also love my city. I love New York, and I want to see adaptive sports continue to grow here. First with women's goalball, and now with beat baseball. And I'm excited, man. I can't wait to see what this is going to become. I'm also excited to see what the Edge are going to do this summer. We're going to have some tough competition to try to three-peat. But yeah, it's going to be tough. The field's getting a little thick up there, right? So, but I'll be back to being the role player, and I'm good with that. My game gets better every year, and I'm just going to continue to work hard and shut up and play. Just shut up and play. Do my job, right? If it means I give one of my guys a break, then I will get my butt out there and bake in the sun like everybody else does, right? If I can pick up a ball once in a while and score a run once in a while, I'm happy with that too. And I played injured since I've been injured since the second week of June, but I played through it. It hurt my running speed, and I barely have any speed at all anyway. But it just made me limp over to the base. But that's going to be very hard to take me out of the lineup unless I lose the leg, right? But I also need to stay healthy for the World Series because I still have a little bit of the season left. Yep. So I'm feeling better. I was able to finally gain like 90% of my speed back. I scored a game winner this past weekend, my first one in my career. Now it's not a walk-off. When I say game winner, we were down in the top of the 6th inning. I was 4th in the order, so I needed somebody to score for me to get up. So one of our new rookies actually tied the game with his first career hit. So we were so proud of him. I was like, oh man, if the guys in front of me don't do it, I'm going to find a way. And so I had my chance. It was 2 outs and the game was tied. And I was like, I do not want to play into a situation where 1 run's going to kill us and we're going to lose on a walk-off, or at very worst case scenario, go into extra innings. Right? I was like, I want to try. I got it and try to at least put us in the lead right now. So I was fortunate enough to hit the ball. We have a good up and coming young pitcher that's coming up with the Bombers, and I was already having a pretty good day. Not superstar, but a good day, and I got a good bat on it. Hit like a kind of a flare, and that time I was like, you know what? I'm gonna run 100%. This leg has worked for me all weekend long. I'm going for it, and I was like, I want to win this game. So I was like, put us in the lead, and so I made it. And my leg held up. I was like, okay, we're good. And then we played the bottom of the 6th, 1, 2, 3 inning, and we won the game. I was like, holy crap! Did I just do that? And that was my second hit of the game. So I was already having a good day. So
wow,
I was like, okay, cool. So again, and that's my way of showing my love and appreciation for New York and the Bombers. And, I want to be part of the excitement along with the youngsters coming up, and just the vibe, like going back to the bench, and it's rebuilding a team that's hoping to become younger and better and maybe getting back into the top 10. That's just as exciting as when I could, score a run or pick up a ball as a role player on a championship level. They're both equally as exciting. So I'll never forget that, and I hope there'll be more moments like that in however many years I play.
Absolutely, very well said. And I did have a chance to play with the Bombers back in 2021 at the World Series. So really, support them and hope to see them back at the series next year.
That's cool. You should come on back, man.
Would love to. Yeah.
Yeah, we could use you, bro. We could use you, man. There's some exciting stuff going on here now. Both of the teams I play in have some really exciting things going on. So
nice.
I just love being a part of it until I can't do it anymore. That's how long I plan to do this. And I take some flack for the 2-team thing, but I don't care. It's just that I'm spending my money, not theirs, and I just love the game. I can't help it. Like you fall in love with a game, and you find the game 20 years late. Like you're going to try to play as many as you can, and if that's wrong, then let me be wrong about it. I don't care. I just love it. I'm definitely not going to be a threat to anybody. I definitely have love and appreciation for the game, where I don't care about the flack I take, and I don't care, like I know myself very well, and my teammates who really choose to get to know me know what I'm all about. And, there are players from other teams who know what I'm all about. And, eventually, if I haven't proven myself yet, then, maybe I'll spend the next, few years, showing them, not necessarily proving it to them, because I've already proven it to myself who I am, right? I know who I am. But if it's going to take, 7 tournaments a year to really cement that, I'm good with it. And at the end of the day, if someone who's associated with me on some level in any of the teams that I play for, or even just other athletes that I come across, if they've gotten something positive out of any experience with me, or at least even if it's not necessarily positive, but at least competitive, because that's who I am, I can firmly stand behind it. And I hope that that they get something out of it, because that's what I want. I want some kind of impact, whether it's competitive, positive, or whatever it is. That's just who I am. I can't help it.
Yeah, I can definitely tell just your personality, wanting to make a difference, whether it's playing, coaching, anything, your day job, just trying to do the right thing, trying to help people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So then before we do put a bow on this episode, definitely wanted to give you a chance to talk about your musical career. I know you've played in bands, and I think even with some other blind and visually impaired musicians. So really curious about your journey in music.
Absolutely. So I founded a group called Los Ciegos del Barrio, which is the blind boys from the hood, basically, back in the late '90s. It was really the name was meant to be a joke. The guy who named the band unfortunately passed away
Hmm.
in 2019. Actually, was it 2019? 2020, actually, sorry. He passed away of cancer. But we initially, like I fell in love with Latin music, not only growing up as a Latin American, even though my Spanish is secondary. So I speak Spanish like an American trying to speak Spanish, but I still understand it well enough to to kind of speak it and certainly sing it. And I just love Latin music. I grew up playing it with my dad. When I was like 10 years old, he put my brother and I on stage with instruments and backing vocals and stuff like that. But I used to play in the school for the blind. We had a music teacher. His name was Elliot Osborne, who was just a father figure to all of us, right?
Hmm.
I was only there 2 years, but he had a huge impact on my life. He took us in as musicians and as apprentices and friends after high school graduation, and we started playing music with him as well. And he had a nonprofit organization called Project Troubadour that sent musicians and entertainers around the world to usually developing nations um, to spread the message of love and music. And sometimes we would get involved with grassroots organizations in whatever country, not in a way where we were like a bunch of Americans telling people how to live, but working with their organizations that would, like, for example, AIDS education in the Dominican Republic or literacy programs in Cuba. I got to go to Russia. I got to go to Cuba. I got to go to the Dominican Republic. We would do these 2-week tours across these nations. And it was not, we had to do our own fundraising. So it wasn't for profit. We weren't getting paid for these gigs. We were doing it whether, we would stop in at a park and play, a restaurant. One of the weirdest gigs I've ever done was at a brothel. It's like, I was like, wow, fringe benefits, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was really strange, but like, it was kind of cool. We played in the flood. One time there was we were trapped in the restaurant because a river had overflowed, and I mean, there's just so many really cool stories. But I think the most meaningful gig for me was in Cuba because I am part Cuban. My brother and we played on a stage in a site where there had been apparently a lot of executions and stuff like that in like this big square. Can't remember the name of it offhand right now, but it was in Havana. But I felt like it was a homecoming, and it was just a raucous crowd, very appreciative because Cuba really appreciates the arts, and it was on live TV. I've been on live TV in 1, 2, 3, 4 different countries.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just such a trip, man. And we made an album out of it, like a live album. So Los Ciegos del Barrio, we initially started playing like mostly bachata and merengue, but then we branched out. There's numerous personnel changes over the years, but then we branched out to a multi-genre band, and then we became a bilingual band. So like now we play rock music, and we do a lot of fusion where I will take, let's say, bachata and combine it with rock, for example, even hard rock. Reggaeton, and we would combine it with cumbia. We would, because we're such a varied mix of nationalities, we have the ability to play all these different types of music. We've gotten involved with some advocacy. We won an award for our community involvement back in 2016, an achievement award through City Access of New York. We've had our 15 minutes of fame a few times on Univision, and being in newspapers, live TV, big channels. Gotten airplay here and there. We've released a few albums and singles.
Wow.
But yeah, and we are We haven't released anything since 2020, but we are hoping to get back into the studio by the end of this year and have an actual full-length album, which would be the first one since 2016. We hope to have one released next year. And our last album was really my favorite one. It's called El Futuro, and it's available like in everywhere you buy music, whether it's Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, we're everywhere. Like that's my favorite album. And then we did our version of I Won't Back Down from Tom Petty. And then we did a song, thanks. And we did a collab song with a rapper named AI Righteous from DC area back in 2020. But we've learned a lot from these trips that we took because that's what inspired me to start the band in the first place back in 1997, right? And we've been around like for a long time. We do private parties, but also public events. So, and that's a cool thing. Like we never blew up fully, right? And it's kind of a positive because that's the thing. Like you're taught in the industry, whatever music you're like, you got to blow up and you're going to be famous, make gajillion dollars. But the problem is you're owned. When you don't blow up, everything is in your control. Your creativity's yours. Your music is all yours. You're not owned. And I like that. Okay, so I don't have a million gajillion dollars or whatever it is, but I have freedom. I think freedom's a lot more important than that. And I do find ways to make money and make that work, right? Make lemonade, right? So
sure.
But everything we do is ours. We're self-run. We have our own label. We don't need Sony Music to sign us. And we don't have that sellability now. We're not 19 years old, and we don't look like or sing like a bunch of pretty boys, but we're talented and we stand behind it. We have music that we can stand on. We have music that grew with us. I mean, there's songs we released. Like in our early years where it's like, I listen, I cringe, but you know what? You can cringe at something from your past, but it doesn't mean you have to regret it because it's part of your growth. It's part of like how you've developed yourself. And then when you compare it to what you are now and you see it, it's rewarding to see. It's like planting a tree, right?
That's
a few years later down the line, you're standing under it, but it was a seed that you planted and it was like, oh, my hands are disgusting, dirty. I gotta plant it. But then you reap the rewards of it a lot later on when you see what it could be. And that's how we look at our music career. And we're still around. We're still around. It's losciegoselbarrio.com, LOSCIEGOSDELBARRIO. Now, that website, we are still reconstructing it right now as of this recording, but we hope to have it up really soon. But again, you can reach out to my social media if you want more information. We do also have a Facebook page with the same band name. Hopefully you can kind of check out our music and just reach out.
Nice. And what instruments have you played?
I play, I'm mostly drums and percussion. I play timbales for salsa and cumbia. I've also played some congas. I play cajon for a lot of the rock tunes and pop fusion tunes. I also play the drum kit when it comes to rock and pop. I also play some guitar. I've played bongos. I've played like numerous like handheld instruments, percussion wise. I also do my own writing. I write and also help out with producing. Wow. And I enjoy it. And I sing. I sing mostly. I'm more comfortable singing in English, but I have sang in Spanish as well. Backgrounds and lead. All of us in the band sing. So we take turns. We're kind of like the blind Beatles, if you will.
Very cool. That's awesome. And wow, I'm just in awe of not only your music, but sports, and just you're such a well-rounded guy and so many accomplishments in your life. So again, we've been chatting with Alvin Suarez here on Eyes Free Sports, and Alvin, really, really appreciate the time. You got such an awesome story, and thanks so much for your willingness to share it here.
I really appreciate you having me on, and it's been a pleasure, man. And reach out if anything. I'll be happy to chat a little bit more on and off the show. And I hope it was a pleasure for everyone out there, because it was definitely a pleasure for me. It was a lot of fun talking to you guys.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Thank you.
To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter at eyesfreesports.